The last time we spoke with Pierre and Anna Poilievre, it was the night before the election. There was determination, there was purpose. But when the votes were counted, the Conservatives lost, and Pierre lost his seat. Most people would have walked away, but he didn't. He's back in the fight, now running in Battle River-Crowfoot. So today, for the first time, we're going to take you back to that moment, watching the interview with you, reflecting on what we were thinking and feeling that day, and giving you all a bit of a behind-the-scenes look at why this conversation is still important.
Let's take a look. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a very special episode of Northern Perspective today. We have been following these two amazing patriots for the last 3 years on our channel. We've been commenting on their work in the House of Commons, commenting on their party's work as they held the government to account on ArriveScan, SDTC. The list goes on with all of the scandals that went on with this Liberal government. And we are one day away from finally seeing change in this country and bringing hope back to Canadians across the nation. So please give a very important and warm welcome to Pierre and Anna Poilievre. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you for having us. It's a privilege to be with you, and thanks for your incredible work for the country over the last several years.
Thank you so much.
I know you.
Okay. So I just want to start off by saying this didn't happen overnight. This was
many months in the making.
Over a year, probably over a year. We started our MP interviews kind of with a bang because we ended up having Stephanie Kuzy, Garnet Jennis, Larry Brock, and Kelly Block on all at once when we were talking about the ArriveCan scandal when it was at its peak in committee.
And this was back when we were still using avatars. Vesper actually designed us some special avatars specifically for that interview because the ones that we had were wearing kind of casual clothing. So he said, I'm going to make you some really nice ones.
Right. So he dressed us up.
Yeah.
So, but this was a culmination of just many months of correspondence, phone calls, commitment, establishing trust, and just networking with people. And it also was, months of finding time as well, because in our initial, I would say when we felt like we were getting close to getting the interview landed, it was just a matter of timing, because Pierre had immediately said, sure, let's get on Northern Perspective. And the problem is there were so many campaign events. He was being whisked all over the country. It was incredibly challenging to try to find the time. And, it was something to be sitting there across from them, actually beginning this interview as we have with many other MPs.
Yeah, and I think kind of what solidified it was our EDA had contacted us earlier that week, so it would have been the week before the election, and they said, hey, we need some people, Pierre's coming to Hamilton, we need some people to stand behind him and form the backdrop. Would you guys be interested in coming? And we're like, of course we would. And our MP was there, our soon-to-be MP, Ned Keurig, was there too, and it was just a great event. That was the one that Vincent kind of crashed by interrupting Pierre. But we had gotten to speak with Pierre afterwards, and I had apologized for Vincent's outburst, and we were just speaking, and they said, oh, we might have some time for an interview, a brief one, but an interview nonetheless, when we're in Oakville. And so we were corresponding with Pierre's staff for the next couple of days, and they were able to make it happen.
Yeah, and it was difficult just because there was a lot of people that wanted to say hi to us after the rally was over, but
in Oakville,
in Oakville,
on the
but
27th.
We had to literally get up from where we were sitting and scoot all the way back to where we set everything up, because Pierre had to do the interview and then literally get on a plane and leave, or get on a bus and leave, because he was going to Peterborough next.
Yeah, so I think this was the 27th, the day of the interview. We drove to Oakville, and we had a friend watching Vincent that day, and Ryan and I drove to Oakville. We parked in the Go parking lot. We had all our camera gear, there, I had our camera bag on my back, and I must have hit a rut or something with one of my heels, and I just went down like a sack of potatoes. And I was so embarrassed in the middle of the street, just like falling, knocked the backpack right off my shoulder. Ryan was there to help me back up. I felt like an idiot, but I wasn't hurt. So we went into the rally. We were brought in by the staff, and they brought us into the room that you see on the screen there, and that's where we conducted the interview. And it was set up a little bit differently, and they had said, move whatever furniture around that you need. We're going to put, they had like these doors just standing in these frames on wheels. It was a little odd. I'd never seen something like that before. But they said, we're going to move the doors in front of the window so it'll help block the sunlight, and just set up all your camera gear, move the room around the way you want it. And after the rally, come here immediately, and we'll be able to conduct the interview. Now, what had happened was we had initially 2 couches set up. And then when we got back to that area after the interview and Pierre and Anna were there, Anna had made the suggestion, oh, let's get these high top chairs there instead. And I was so nervous because I was like, oh my gosh, we set it up wrong. Because again, we're not professionals. We're podcasters. We learn as we go, right? And I was like, oh my gosh, they don't like it. Oh my goodness. And I was so scared. But honestly, Anna and Pierre are like the sweetest people, and their staff helps set up the room again in a better
They literally got it done in like 60 seconds.
Yeah, it was crazy. Just all these people came in, we're moving furniture, and they're like, okay, it's done. It was great. Everybody was so wonderful and so helpful.
So that's not blathering on from us. Let's get into the interview.
Paid a big price to do this work, but the benefit to the country, I think you'll find, will outweigh the cost, and you are truly patriotic in paying that cost for all of us.
Thank you so much. So the interesting thing is, you and I are both fathers, and I think we ended up becoming fathers near around the same time.
Yeah.
And when I talk to new parents or fathers that are about to become fathers, I tell them, be ready, because there's going to be a switch that flips and you don't even know what's going to happen. But as soon as it does, you go into father mode, and you are ready to literally battle the world for your child. And that's why we started Northern Perspective for our son. That's why we fight as hard as we do and work as hard as we do. And my question is that why you are so passionate about this country? Is it did something trigger in you when your daughter was born?
Yes, very much so. I want her to have the same chances that I had when I was a kid, and she has some special needs like your little guy has, needs that I didn't have when I was a kid, but she's really an incredible, brilliant, brave, and very raw and real human being. She is, I like to say, she tells you exactly what she thinks and how she feels, even though she doesn't yet speak. When she's mad, she yells and stomps her feet. When she's happy, she laughs and smiles. When she loves you, she looks you straight in the eye and holds you tight. She is non-judgmental. She will walk up to a perfect stranger and hop in the lap of a little old lady she's never met in her life, just because she feels that that's a special person. And it's really incredible to see her unique and special ways, and she has abilities and gifts that other people don't have because of the way that God made her. So as a father, I'm very protective of her, and I know that we're going to make sure that she has a great life.
So I don't even know if there's any point in me saying I'm not sure if you can tell, because I think everyone can tell. This whole interview was like structured very intentionally. These weren't questions that we came up with, off the top of our heads. This was, I think, days of wrestling with what the questions were going to be. Didn't know how long we would have for the questions, so we constructed a few more, and we had an idea of where we wanted to go, but there was some key questions we wanted to ask. These were not policy questions. They were not politics questions. Everyone has seen Pierre talk in press conferences. They've seen him talk in the House of Commons, And a lot of people may feel the way he talks is, scripted. It's because he's getting essentially the same questions over and over again from literally everybody he talks to. So even his mannerisms and everything like that, they can feel scripted to people. So what we wanted to do is show people how he is off camera, how he is in the conversations that we've had with him, that so many Canadians have had with him, so they get to see what he's actually like. And if you notice the way he's answering these questions, it's very matter of fact, and none of these are scripted. They didn't get these questions in advance either. So
they didn't even really ask us what the interview was going to be about. Like when we were setting up the cameras earlier in the day, one of the staff members had asked, do you know what you're going to talk about type thing? And we're like, yeah, we want to know who Pierre is as a person.
Yeah, and we said we're going to be, we want to ground it in emotion. We want to ground it, in the non-political side so people can see the type of person he is. And they said, that sounds fantastic, and that's it.
Because one of the things, like, whenever we speak to MPs or even former MPs, one of the things I usually ask is, like, what is Pierre like as a person? And some of the things I'm always hearing is he's an incredibly hard worker. He's a true patriot. He really believes in this country. He's a wonderful husband and father. And I think those are some of the things that, especially people who might be a little bit anti-Pierre, they don't see, they don't hear, because the media doesn't focus on them.
Well, and a lot of what the media will also show people is the way he was like in his early 20s, where he was a pit bull, he was an attack dog. And as a lot of dads and husbands out there will tell you, and you already know, marriage will change you, life will change you, and having a child will change you. And you see the evolution of Pierre. So this, in our opinion, really shows how he really is, because these are just questions like he's answering from the heart.
It was like having a conversation. Now, I was incredibly nervous the whole time because, keep in mind, this was April 27th. So I'm sitting down from Pierre Poilievre and his wife, Anna, and I'm like, this man could be prime minister tomorrow. I could be conducting, or we could be conducting the last interview before this man becomes prime minister. What an honor for us. What a achievement for Northern Perspective. And it was just such a fantastic conversation.
And it was his last interview of the campaign. So that was something. So.
And has a lot to contribute to.
Now, one of the things that we're concerned about, with our son, and again, it's why we started Northern Perspective, is, Canada isn't that warm and friendly place that it used to be. Mm. And I think one of the biggest problems in Canada is there's so much division, between families, between friends, between co-workers. So I think, the next prime minister is going to have one of the biggest problems that no prime minister has faced since Confederate Federation 1867, which is to heal the country.
Yes.
So how will you go about healing those divisions and bringing our country back together?
That's a good question. I think we need to unite around the greatest thing about our country, which is the promise that it makes everybody, every single person, that whatever your background, however you started out, whether you've been here for 6 months or your family's been here 6 generations, if you work hard, you get a great life. The reason that is unifying is, one, it's for everyone. Doesn't matter what your religion is. Doesn't matter, what your political philosophy is, which region you live in. That promise is for everyone. The second reason is that it's not a zero-sum game. Right now we have an economy that is really zero-sum. Whenever the government controls everything, then if person A gets more, then person B has to have less because it's zero-sum. But with a truly open economy where we can create more for everyone, then person A can win and person B can win. In fact, they can win together. And that's not just true of the economy, it's true of our discourse when we have freedom of speech. Just because you've added your voice to the debate doesn't mean someone else's voice is taken away. It's additive. And that way people don't have to be at each other's throats fighting over a scarce amount of of wealth and power, everyone can get ahead, everyone can do better. So the unifying principle of Canada for me has always been that promise. I know it sounds gushy and mushy, but it really is why people come here. Like why do so many people want to come to Canada? It's not for the weather. It's because they say, well, they come from a country where if you start at the bottom of the ladder, you can never climb up. But if you go to Canada, you might arrive at the bottom, but you can start climbing, and very quickly, in a couple of generations, you look at Anna's story. That's what we have to reinstate. And I think that will truly bring our people together.
So we had rehearsed 5 questions that we were going to ask Pierre and Anna. And this one was supposed to be one of mine. But when we found out that the interview would only be 15 minutes in length, we thought that we would maybe get to ask 3 questions. So it would be like 5 minutes per question / response. And Ryan asked this one. And you'll see kind of why that's important later, because it ended up messing up one of my questions because I didn't have a different one memorized.
Well, and ironically, it led to a question that we had cut that actually ended up being probably the best question in the interview. So, but this was the challenging part, because I'm constantly looking down at my phone, checking the time, seeing, how much time that we have. And
Pierre's staff were there keeping track of the time because they knew what time they needed to leave. So we had somebody watching the clock for us to make sure that we didn't accidentally get carried away. But we thought that we would be able to get in fewer questions. And in the end, we were able to ask all 5. But this was one of the ones that I had rehearsed and Ryan had asked. So later on, when it came for me to ask a different one, it got kind of messed up.
So Anna, you are a very important part of not only the Conservative Party, but of this campaign. And I think you bring a very feminine touch to the whole thing that has, I think, traditionally been considered, I think the Conservatives have been kind of a man's party in the past. And you bring a feminine side to it, not just by supporting Pierre, but also through your advocacy for women and children who don't have voices, those that may have been abused or trafficked. How do you think we can get more women involved in Conservative politics?
I think that we're seeing more and more, and I'm very proud of the roster that we have of candidates. We have a lot of strong women, and Pierre's been very good at actually surrounding himself with strong women, not because they're women, but because they're good at what they do. And I think that that's also a wonderful thing. I think it's sort of a natural process. The more women you see involved, the more that you can see yourself in the party and be part of it. So I think it's more of a natural process, and I'm always very thankful for the husband I have, because he's the kind of man who's always celebrating me. When he won the leadership race in 2022, he asked me to introduce him, and I had originally said no way. But he just encouraged me. He's like, you're such a great speaker. You're part of this. We're doing it together. And so he just propelled me, put me on the stage, and we've been doing it together as a team. And I think that the more you see that, the more women will see themselves. So it's a natural process. And very grateful that he's been pushing me for it and promoting women, again, not because they're women, but because they're very good at what they do.
And there you see the stark contrast between the Conservatives and the Liberals. The Liberals had a gender parity cabinet just because. That's called sexism, folks. But when you have people, when you have women that are working for you, that are in elevated positions around you because of one reason and one reason only, and that's their competence, that is how you encourage people to step up. And that's how you demonstrate and put to bed any questions as to why they're there. That's the difference. The fact that Melissa Lantsman is the deputy leader, and the fact that he has people like Stephanie Kuzy and Kelly Block in these very important shadow ministers roles, and they would transition into the cabinet positions associated with them, you don't wonder, well, why did he pick them? Is it just because they're a woman? You don't wonder that.
No, it's because they're the best individual for that position.
And we know if his opinion changes, he will change that person out. And it doesn't matter if they're going to be a man or a woman, he's going to be putting the best person there. Why? Because it's taxpayer dollars.
Well, and not just that, it's these are the people who are running the country. You want competent ministers. You don't want somebody in a position just because they're a woman or just because they're a man or whatever other arbitrary trait that you can ascribe to them. You want the best person for the job. You want them because they have the experience, because they have the work ethic, because they are good for that position.
Because otherwise it's tokenism, and otherwise, I'm sorry, but you are completely disrespecting the people that you're putting in those positions. You're saying you couldn't get this on your own. So like, how patronizing is it for you to say, oh, you couldn't get this on your own, but don't worry, I will put you there. I'll put you up there. You couldn't get it on your own, but don't worry, a man put you. How sexist,
that's awful,
and patronizing is that? And yet it's Justin Trudeau and Mark Carney and these types of people who seem to think that that's a good thing. We'll put people in these positions that they didn't earn, and they will, on some level, they will feel that they didn't earn it, and then you're potentially ostracizing them around their peers, because everyone who's going to be their colleagues is going to be like, okay, I see why you're here. Wasn't hard work. It's because of what you were born like. That's unreal.
Right. Now, I want to go on and say that if you look at that clip, you can see Pierre's body language towards Anna as she's answering the question, and he leans towards her and he's smiling at her and making eye contact with her. It was a very intimate setting, just the four of us, and you could really feel that bond that the two of them have. And you often hear online, oh, well, conservatives are sexist, or Pierre specifically is sexist, or this or that. I was not getting any of that. I don't think any of that is true. I think what the other MPs have been telling me is that he is a very loving husband. You could see it in their interaction together. And just through Anna's story where she was saying, I didn't want to go up and speak, but he encouraged me and he supported me. And by Pierre supporting Anna, Anna was able to support Pierre. And that's what makes a good marriage.
Now, this question may take me a little bit to get through. We have received thousands of messages, emails, comments from Canadians across this country. Seniors that skip days without eating because they can't afford it. People who talk about the fact that they wish they could afford to have a family. People who, will never afford a home. People who have threatened to do the worst. Because they just lost hope. But you've provided that hope. And Canadians are really looking to this election, many of them, as their last chance for hope. What do you have to say to those Canadians?
Well, first of all, I want to thank people for vesting their hopes in me. I'm sometimes overwhelmed by it, because it's like people say that the direction of their lives depend on my delivering for them. And I don't consider that a burden. I consider it an incredible honor, and I'm in awe of it. I'm actually in awe that people would vest that in me. I'm not someone who is born with like a savior complex. I don't think, I'm here to save the world, but I'm really here to give people back their lives. And I want those people to know that I'm going to keep fighting for them, that the hope that they deserve is on the way, that they have to get out and vote, because if they don't vote, there is no hope. But if they do vote, we can bring change, and we know how to do it. We did it. We had this in this country. We had a hopeful, opportunity-filled country not long ago, and the very same principles that created that country are just beneath the surface. So we can bring them forward above the surface. And you will, people out here are asking themselves, will I ever be able to afford a home? Yes, you will. Will you be able to live in a safe neighborhood? Yes, you will be able to be safe again. Yes, your kids will have a future in this country. So have hope. Change is on the way. We're going to keep fighting for you, and we're going to get this over the finish line. Thank you for being with me from the very start of that.
And if I can add, this is why it's important, though. Why are you doing this? And Pierre and I are a product of the Canadian promise. Never you would think coming from his humble background, having to fight for everything, being adopted, that he would stand on that stage and have thousands of people putting their hope in him. Never would have my dad, who is there today, think that his daughter would be there. So the why, we are a result of the Canadian Promise, and that is so important why we're doing this.
We want to basically give the next generation what we had. That's my purpose in politics.
And that's what you've been doing in politics too. So when I get upset as a wife, of course, when people talk about Pierre's experience. And also, I was a parliamentary affairs advisor. I worked in Parliament Hill, and I saw the difference between a very effective politician who knew how to get things done and someone who had just arrived. And with Pierre's experience, he knows exactly how you get things done, how to get legislation passed, all of the regulations, and that's what you need. Everything that you've done, it's exactly what we need right now.
Exactly.
Well, I think that all came out in your plan, especially the shovels in the ground initiative. That when we first saw that, I thought that was frankly brilliant, because that to me was a product of your 20 years in politics. You understand where the roadblocks are, what turns to take, and you know what levers to pull in order to actually get things done. And at the conclusion of that presentation, I said to our audience, I said, "This is what happens when you have a career politician. They know how to get things done."
Exactly.
So this was just a response to what Pierre said. And I was actually thrilled that Anna brought this up, because it was one of the best pillars in the campaign, in my opinion, in how they were going to get massive projects done, how they were going to incentivize investment to actually come into Canada by literally just getting out of the way. And the question that I had asked, it was a long answer. I was having lots of trouble keeping it together, just because, you know, we really take to heart a lot of the emails that we get. And, you know, when people say to us, and we still get these comments, and I'm going to be choking up trying to get this out again. When people say to us, you know, you give us hope, we take that incredibly seriously. And this is why, you know, some people think that, you know, we get a little preachy sometimes. I get preachy because I get angry or I get passionate. And I don't get angry at Canadians. I get angry or passionate on behalf of Canadians, because we all deserve better. And that's what we strive for on the channel, which is we're constantly trying to be better. We're trying to be better than ourselves than we were a week before, a month before, a year before. And we take all feedback in stride, and we continue to try and do our best, because that's what Canadians deserve, because Canadians have not been getting the best from journalism, from media, or from their politicians.
Yeah, we need that. This is a country where things aren't getting done anymore. It takes 17 years to get a mine approved. We've got the second slowest building permits in the OECD. It takes 3 times longer to permit a project in Canada versus the UK and the US. And, you know, the great conservative leader, Bob Stanfield, said we have to stop stopping and start starting. And that idea, which you just described, is a very simple concept. We pre-permit. We say in this zone you can build these following things. The permits are already published and binding, so that businesses don't have to worry about 7 years of swimming through red tape to get to a maybe. They have a yes, and they can just get building. That's how we're going to unlock our incredible potential, build homes, pipelines, mines, LNG plants, you name it. That's how we're going to make this the richest country in the world.
So in just a few years, your children are going to be old enough to start understanding politics and, you know, the partisanship and how Parliament works. What do you expect that your children will think of your legacy?
So this was supposed to be one of Ryan's questions, and it was one I think that we had initially cut.
Yep.
And then we noticed that we weren't being told to
Stop.
stop or wrap it up. So we're like, okay, let's ask that last question real fast. Because Ryan had already asked 3 of them. He's like, okay, you ask the next one. And number 1, because I was so nervous, but number 2, because I hadn't rehearsed this question, I wasn't really sure how to ask it. So between Pierre stopping his answer and me asking the question, there was probably like 60 to 120 seconds where I was trying to find this question on Ryan's phone and ask it, and I kind of flubbed it a little bit, but I think in the end the point of the question was the same, and I really think it was the best question of the whole interview, because we got to see Pierre not only as a politician but as a father as well.
Well, and isn't editing wonderful? That's all I'll say.
Wow, that's a big question. I hope they will. I hope they know that the time that I spent away from them was because I was fighting for something that mattered to them and to people like them. I hope they'll. Right now, I don't think they fully understand why we're not there. I mean, we're away right now. We're on the road, and
In 2 weeks,
for 2 weeks we haven't seen them. They're with Anna's family. They came on the road for the first 2 weeks, and then it was getting to be too much for them. So they've been back at home, and I think probably there's question marks in their heads. So where are my parents? What are they doing? They don't have any idea exactly what this project is. They've seen it, but like our little boy Cruz said when we were pulling up to one of the rallies, he said those are Dad's friends, and there was 1,000 people in line up to get into the rally.
Dad's job is just to speak in a microphone. Like, he just doesn't understand.
Yeah, and he loves the microphone. Did we get him the Tory microphone yet?
No, yeah. Well, stealing the one from the...
He steals the microphone.
I'll start yelling, bring it home into it. So.
Yeah, that's right. But my hope is that they will understand why we did this, why we weren't always there, why we were on the road, that it was to go into the world and fight for what we believe in, and that they should grow up to do the same.
Yeah.
This was so powerful, because it's 2 parents sitting across from 2 parents. It's not, podcasters and politicians. It was very human. And you could just see the pain in Anna and Pierre's faces when Anna was saying, it's been 2 weeks since we've seen our children, but we hope that they understand why we're doing this.
Well, look at the answer, right? Because the answer was about legacy, right? The answer was about what do you want your children to think? And it wasn't about, I want them to think of me as the best prime minister in Canada. I want them to think that, I was the best builder, the best anything.
It was just, I hope that they understand why we can't be with them at this exact moment in time. And I mean, as a parent, that just, it gets you right here, right? Because even when Vincent goes to an activity for the day, I find myself looking forward to when he can come home and we can see him again. And I couldn't imagine being without him for 2 weeks.
With that, I know you got to run, Mr. Poilievre. Mrs. Poilievre, thank you so much for joining us.
It's a privilege, and I want to say to every one of your viewers out there, thank you very much for backing these 2. They've done an incredible job for Canada, major sacrifices for their little guy, but also for all Canadians. And please continue to support them. And more immediately, you have to get out and vote. The future for our kids, for our country, it depends on getting out to vote. There's hope for a change. So let's bring it home.
And we really appreciate. We didn't know he was going to do that at the end either. So that was very humbling.
It was, yeah.
Because Pierre knows this story with my job, and
he's met Vincent. He knows that we started Northern Perspective to help be able to afford his therapies. And I mean, he lives in Ontario. He knows what the autism program is like in Ontario because Pierre's daughter Valentina is also autistic.
Right, and we've since had to make this our full-time job, and it's what pays the bills. So we put a lot of effort into it. We take any extra money that we can take, and we put it back into Northern Perspective to make sure that you guys continue to get top quality content, at least as much as we can do it without the sound guy Ryan screwing everything up. But Anyway,
Final thoughts?
I think everything that was said in this interview is still relevant in this by-election, just because it sets up and it frames who the man is.
Well, and that's the thing. Like, you see all these horrible things online, primarily coming from the left, that, oh, he's mean, or he's misogynistic, or he's this, or he's that. None of that's true. And, you know, I've tried to show people this interview and show them the evidence. And, well, he's a politician. Of course he's going to act like that. I was there, okay? You can tell when somebody is lying to you, or at least I can. And everything that was said in that interview was 100% genuine. And from everything that I've heard from every other politician that we've spoken to, that's the real Pierre. He's the real deal.
So if you live in the riding of Battle River-Crowfoot, get out, volunteer, contact the EDA, contact the campaign team. If you want to get involved, this is a great way to kind of start getting involved. And if you aren't going to be able to get involved, get out and vote. That's what matters. And assuming he's successful, we will see Pierre back in the House of Commons in September.